with Miss C. We don't have Shanan tonight. You know, Shanan is still celebrating Thanksgiving, and he's celebrating Thanksgiving with his family and his 2-year-old son, who is running his life. So he is with his family enjoying Thanksgiving. But thank you so much for joining tonight. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like us. And don't forget to tell others about Straight Talk with yours truly, great fan, the preacher man, and Shanan and Miss C. Miss C, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I just finished eating another plate of food, and I am extremely happy.
Extremely happy.
Well, first of all, I'm happy because first of all, I want to give thanks to God for providing the meal that we had, and I'm so grateful that we had a whole lot left, and we've been, I just been not nibbling all day, but I just finished a nice big plate, and so if you see my head start to go this way, that's because
I understand. I understand. You know, they were talking about how much food is wasted during the Thanksgiving holiday. That we waste so much food. We cook these big meals. And when I said we cook, others cook, I consume these big meals, and we have all these cakes and all these pies and all the turkey and the ham, the dressing and the yams, and just everything that we have for Thanksgiving dinner. And we have so much that we have. We send plates home, and we take plates home and nibble off of them, and then we just, after a minute, I'm tired of eating this, and we throw it away. But one of the greatest things about Thanksgiving that for me this year, that first of all, I'm like you, I'm grateful that I'm still here with a reasonable portion of my health and strength and my right mind. And I'm just grateful for family, spending time with family. I had an opportunity this Thanksgiving, my wife and I were shared with my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law. And most times that's where we go for Thanksgiving with them, and seeing my little niece and her daughter. And we stayed over and shared with them. And then I got a chance to go over and spend some time. Surprisingly, I surprised my cousin, Mary Frazier, which is Walt Frazier's sister, and and my little cousin Keith and his sister Jean, and just a host of all of my family members on my father's side. Got a chance to just spend some time with them and just have fellowship and reminisce about, when we were younger and we used to play in Grady Homes. You do remember Grady Homes, right? And we used to be in Grady Homes. That's where the family reunion used to be, in the project. We used to be in the projects having family reunions out on the front lawn. 35 or 40 of us having family reunions there, and it was just fun, just spending time with them and being able to just reminisce and laugh about my dad and my uncle and their mom and all of their aunties and uncles, and that we just grew up with, and just the love that we had in terms of a family, and it was just a beautiful thing. And, talking about also how it used to be. You remember when we were younger, when you went to date, they call it dating there, we called it courting back in the day. When you went to a girl's house or family, their house or something like that, first thing you say, who are your people? Who your people are? Who your people? What's your daddy do? What your mama do? Where you live? All these things. And they want to check out to see if y'all was cousins or relatives. And we talked about that. And one of my little cousins, her mother's deceased, and she was saying that she knew my son, and she said, well, I was friends, we had mutual friends. I said, you didn't date him, did you? She said, when I found out what his name was, she said, I got a cousin named Gregory Fann. I said, yeah, I'm Junior. But it was just fun, just sharing, and just, just being with family, and just reminiscing again, and just having a good time. And I hope that others had the same time, where they just kind of talked about things that of the past, and how we were raised, and how it was just so much love when the family was just so together. But it was a great time. So how was your Thanksgiving?
It was wonderful. My daughter and I did the bulk of the cooking, but the bulk of it actually came from catering. We ordered the heavy stuff like dressing and chicken and macaroni and cheese and a peach cobbler, and then she and I cooked the vegetables. So we had a pretty easy time this time because making dressing is really involved if you're gonna make some good dressing. And so we let the professionals do that for us. So we had a pretty easy preparation time, and we sat around and we ate, and then we played Uno, and then we looked through my grandmother's old picture books and looked at pictures and laughed, and I introduced my grandchildren to people they did not know existed. And it was just a wonderful time. And I told them, I said, this is what I did with my grandmother. And I said, not long ago when my son and daughter were little, that's what she would do, pull out the photo album, and we sit there and look, and she'd tell us who these people were and tell us stories about maybe something funny that happened. And so we got to do more of that. We've got to share what has happened in the past, because the children don't know about the past. They really don't. They know about the here and now. But and my great grandmother had, I don't know how or where she got it from, but she had a write up of about Dr. and other famous people in a photo album. And we were looking through there and reading all the different articles, like Madam C.J. Walker. I mean, just a whole lot of people that in her time, they were alive and well. And so we had a wonderful time of sharing, and I said, we need to make this a tradition. After each meal, we sit down and look through some photos and introduce the younger kids to our ancestors, because I have a lot of information that I need to share.
Well, and it really, I just left my aunt's house before the program, my mother's baby sister, right? And, couldn't get by there for Thanksgiving, but went over there today just to share with her. And that's what we were talking about. And my baby cousin, she's the youngest of all. She said, "You the oldest of all the grandkids." And I really never thought about it, that I am the oldest of the grandkids on my mother's side. And everybody, for information, people ask me about this person, that person, this person, that person, and stuff. She said, I know the names of those people, but I don't know, I didn't know them, but I know the names. And my aunt pulled out a picture of my grandmother's mother, who saw about us when we were little, and I remember her, Grandma Rainey, and my grandmother's sister, my Aunt Mattie, who lived near us, and my grandma, and I was like, oh man. And that's when they were younger, my grandma and my Aunt Mattie were younger with their mother. But just the history of this, like you said, pulling out the photos, seeing my uncle who fought in that war, that when blacks went over there and fought in the war, then they came back and they didn't have any rights or privileges, but they went over there and they fought for this country and then came back home and was treated as third or fourth class citizens, right, when they fought for this country. And just hearing those stories, which I read stories about that, and soldiers going over there to war and coming back. I've seen documentaries about it, but knowing that my uncle, who's my mother's brother, who's the oldest, actually was one of those individuals who experienced that, I'm still learning history, right, from Aunt. And because she's the last of my mother's sibling, so she's telling me stuff, and now I'm the oldest, and now I'm sharing what I heard from them about what went on and how things happened, and just kind of putting the pieces together based on what we know, what we've read through books and then the documentaries. And now they want to take our history away from us and not not allow us to know our past. And if we don't teach our kids ourselves, they don't want to teach it in school anymore, right? They want to take it out of school. So I mean, these things are important when we spend family time together and share information. And Cynthia, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop here and let you do your news and information, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about family time, and we're going to talk more about our time together at WYZE and some of the other things that we've done in the past in terms of radio and TV. So Cynthia, is on you, Miss C.
Okay, I'm ready. Hey, listen. You're invited each Sunday at 10 a.m. to worship services with the Center of Hope Church, 3340 Noah's Ark Road in Jonesboro. Bishop Alfreda Young invites you to come and share with them in their services. You can get more information by going to their website at www.thecenterofhopechurchinc.com. And listen, I want to tell you about something that's coming up in March the 28th. My church, Flipper Temple AME Church, we're going to be sponsoring Kiki Sheard in concert. And it's going to be at the Martin Luther King Chapel. And they tell me that it's going to be a high time that night. They're going to have also two other artists along with Kiki Sheard, which they have not named yet. But that's March the 28th, 2025. And I'll have more information about it as we go along. Okay?
All right. I'm sure you're going to have more information. I'm sure of that.
And listen, first of all, I want to remind them to do what? What's the first thing? Subscribe.
Like being subscribed. Where your cheat sheet?
And please leave comments. Let us know how we're doing. And number 4, share us. Don't keep Straight Talk News to yourself. Tell everybody about Straight Talk News. You'll be glad you did, because they're going to thank you. They're going to say, wow, those two dynamic people, especially that Miss C. But anyway.
We talk about family time and sharing that with the people who will be watching to the program. Another thing that was important in terms of family time was time when we shared at church, where as a family we attended church and we spend time at church, and we created a church family. We had a church family. There were people that were in our family that were not in our biological family, but they were a part of our spiritual family and our spiritual growth. And those people were near and dear to us. Our Sunday school teachers, our choir directors, those people who poured into us, our Boy Scout and Girl Scout leaders, the ones who kind of taught us to be morally straight. And to love one another and to look out for one another. And that's what our community was based upon. The anchor of the black community was the black church. And it seems that though that the black church, we're losing the black church because of all of this developments and all the stuff that's going on, that the church is kind of non-effective anymore in terms of black church. That's where we got all our information from, was the black church. Right?
That's right. I was listening to they did a commemoration of my ex-father-in-law. He was one of the 5 fishermen that came up missing in Pensacola, Florida, and now they're investigating their deaths. And they were talking about the black church being it was the mecca for information, because we couldn't go to other places to meet, so we had to meet at the black church, and that's where all of information was coming. We had a lot of schools were based there. I know I went to a private school, and it was based at a church that was on Mason Turner Road, which has been torn down now, and you've got a bunch of apartments there. But we had everything there at the church. We had our plays, our Easter play, Thanksgiving play. I remember being in a play, and I had started writing plays myself, and I was young then. And it was an inspiration to me for to see my teachers. They would write out the plays, and we would act them out, and that was for all occasions. And so, everything was centered around the Black church, and we've got to get back to our roots.
Well, I would say that who I am as an individual, growing up under the tutelage of the late Reverend Rev David Abernathy, being in the church where the word was being taught, the message of deliverance, the message of salvation, the message of repentance, but the message also of letting us know who we were as a people and what we would do as a people in terms of the equality that we deserved, because we were treated as second-class citizens or third-class citizens or fourth-class. I mean, we were oppressed people. And I share this with people, is that we came out of that bondage because of the Black church, because of the Black church and the Black leaders who stood up and fought for us to have the rights that we now really enjoy. Through the civil rights issue, the sitting, the bus boycotts, all the things that took place were led by ministers and the unions. They really were the ones that were instrumental in making sure that we received the right to vote, the things in terms of equal employment, that you're treated fairly on the job, and that you have opportunities to get better pay on the job and be treated fairly on the job, and just because you was Black, what do they call that, affirmative action, that affirmative action program, which opened up a lot of doors. Now you and I know, because we really was benefactors of it, because when we came out of school, we were able to get jobs at IBM, Bell South, Delta, and a whole lot of the corporations. A lot of our classmates, they retired from those jobs, right? Because they opened up the jobs for through affirmative action, so that Blacks could move into those jobs and opportunity. The post office, working at General Motors, working at Ford Motors. Those were the jobs that create middle class income for Black people here in Metro Atlanta, and I'm sure across the country it did, right? So, but now it looks like. Go on. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, my first job was at Rich's department store, and they put in a office. It was called credit authorization, and I started working there about 3 months after we graduated in 1968. And I know that the reason I got that job was because of what had just transpired.
Well, I know you're saying that, but I want you to further elaborate on that point, because there are a lot of people that are listening. Some that's our age that understand, but there's some other young people that's listening don't really understand that what you just said. You got that job because of what was happening.
We graduated that year in May, but a month before that, Dr. King was assassinated. And before that, they had I think it was the Kent State uprisings. And so a lot happened in 1968 that was newsworthy. And you don't hear as much about it now, but a lot was going on in 1968. So when we graduated, May the 25th, 1968, my grandmother kindly woke me up the next day and said, "You got to go find a job." So, I didn't know what she was talking about, a job. So I thought I was going to sleep in late because I had graduated, but you got to get up. And she told me how to go downtown, she told me where to go. She gave me instructions. She told me what bus to catch. Now, I had never done this before in my life, but my grandmother instructed me on what to do. And I went down there and I did what she told me. She told me to go back every Monday and just check on the job. And I did. And the lady said, you've been here a lot of times, and so let's see what we got for you. And so I got a job in the credit authorization department, and that was pretty high up at that time. And so we and like my grandmother, we need to pass along skills, the skills that she gave me. She was not an educated, college educated person, but she was smart in her own right, because her mother, my great grandmother, also provided instruction. We've got to do that for our children, and just kind of guide them in the way that they need to go.
One of the things that our parents had was they were not educated. I think my dad had a 3rd grade education. My mom had a 7th grade education, but what they had was common sense. They called it mother wit. They had common sense, and they knew things because they had the common sense, and they used their common sense to pass on to us to tell us, use your head for more than a hat rack. Right. They would say these things, and that would help us. Do what now? I'm sorry. You were about to say something.
No, I said yes, they would. Yeah. That phrase, use your head for something more than a hat rack. My grandmama said that. Countless times.
And don't tell them how many times they said, use your head for more than a hat rack. Use your head for more than a hat rack. But those kinds of things that they instilled in us, and they taught us, and they showed us how to have manners. They showed us how to be respectful. They told us our attitude would determine our aptitude, and they taught us these things. Those were the common sense things that they taught us, and that your gift make room for you, but your attitude to open up doors for you. You say you kept going back seeing about that job. You didn't go in there arrogant. You went there being respectful, being mannerable, right, saying thank you, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Those things that people say, oh, that's slave talk, but those things were the kind of things that time that if you said it, people they were more apt to work with you because you had manners and you had respect. And now we have a lack of manners, and we have a lack of respect from our young people, because they don't understand. They think they're entitled, and they do these things, and so that's what's happening. That we see that's going on today. We've been doing radio and TV since I think we started back in the 90s, somewhere in the 90s, and I can't remember the year, but somewhere in the 90s we started doing 1991. Radio. 91. We started doing radio in 91, and then we started doing a program called A New Look in Gospel, where we would bring in individuals who, we go out and we take videos of just local artists and then national artists, and we would show them on our program each and every Sunday on AIB. And so a lot of that, and when you see Cynthia and I talking, we have that kind of chemistry and history because we did that for so many years. And even now today, some people will say, when you seen Cynthia? I seen on the other end of the stream of Straight Talk, so you need to start tuning in to Straight Talk, because we're now on Straight Talk on the podcast. But we have worked together, giving out information, worked together to make sure that people were informed and that people understood that they were individual and they were appreciated. For whatever gift or whatever talents they have. Now, some of the performers that we had on, they weren't as gifted as the Williams brothers. We've had the Williams brothers on. They were local talents, but they needed an outlet so that people could see them and their gifts. And sometimes people are selfish, and they only look at the major performers, those ones on national TV. But we opened up an opportunity for them to be aired on our program, so people would see them and the gift that God had given them and the talent that they had. We did the Jerry Thompson Award, and we had our choirs from everywhere. We did Angela Wright. She directed and she taped it and everything from AIB. And so Angela's now, and she's over there to what church is she at now? Angela. Hillside. Beautiful sister, very beautiful sister, very beautiful sister. Yeah. But we had performers. That was one of the greatest things that I would say of our legacy that we did when we were doing a New Looking Gospel, was to have that Thompson Award, for honoring the late Jerry Thompson, who was my mentor and getting me, and when I got into radio, trained me radio. And so, and that year, New Jerusalem, the Reverend Thomas Ashford choir, they won the Thompson Award. They won the Thompson Award. But we had a multiplicity of choirs that came from all across the city, across the state, that was in that contest. And but they won the contest that year. And Cynthia was very instrumental in putting that thing together along with myself. But she was kind of the nuts and bolts of that kind of thing. I was more of the mouthpiece. Probably like I am now.
Well, yeah. Some things just don't change. They just don't change. I know my place. I know, you taught me very well.
Yeah, but we really were good, and people look every Sunday morning. They look turn on and look at a New Looking Gospel with George Greg Fann and Cynthia Waters, and that was back in the 90s.
And had not the Olympics interrupted us, because we were filming over at Clark, and they needed to use the studio, and at that point, that was the only thing that interrupted a New Looking Gospel was the Olympics. And after the Olympics had gone, then they said, wow, we can open this up to other people just like we did the Olympics. And that kind of pushed us a little, not out but over.
Right.
But you'll be going strong if not for that.
Well, and Cynthia, with that being said, I really forgot about Randy, and when you said that, you brought it back brought it back to memory, that we did go from AIB over to Clark's channel, and was over there doing it over there. Both of them simultaneous at the same time, so we were doing stuff. So yeah, man, boy, you brought back some memories. Those are real memories now.
Now, the reason I can remember that is because I was the trainee, and I had to go over to AIB, and after Angela had put it together, pick up the tape and take it over to Clark. And that was my job. That was my only job training you gave me. I had to do the grunt work. You go over here and pick this up, pick that up.
Well, somebody had to do it.
Well, that's the way you do trainees. They get to do the grunt work. But that's how you learn, though, really. That's how you learn.
But Cynthia, and people now, they want to come in already knowing, and they don't really, we call it paying dues back in the day, but they think that they come right in the door, supposed to already be out front, they're supposed to already be this, because they're entitled to do these things, but there's a learning process, and there's a growing process, and you had a gift and a talent. People talk about that all the time today. So, your voice. I just love to hear Cynthia's voice. She's got that voice. She's gifted. She's got a gifted voice. And I said, well, when Cynthia and I went to school together, and of course there was something that was going on for the class or reunion or something, and they'd asked Valerie Sutton, Reverend R.B. Sutton, daughter, the late Reverend R.B. Sutton, over Pastor Dixie Hill. She called me at the station and she said, Greg, can you do a PSA for me for the class thing? I said, well, yeah, I could. I said, but do y'all have somebody in the class could do it? She said, well, Cynthia. And I said, well, okay. Give me Cynthia. I called Cynthia. We talked. Cynthia, you can come over here and do this. Cynthia, I can't do that. I don't know. I don't have a voice for that. I don't know about. I said, Cynthia, just come on over and we're gonna cut the PSA. And she cut the PSA for the class, and that started her career in radio, because once she got on and made that spot, people like, man, that voice, who is that? That's Cynthia. And so she became my real mentee then. She became my real mentee at the radio station. And when I left the radio station, I was a program director and doing public service announcements and stuff like that. And then when I left, Cynthia then became that individual. She took my place at the radio station. And how many years did you do it, Cynthia?
28.
28 years. 28 years.
8 years.
So we got a lot to do.
That was a good run. That was a good run.
We got a lot to be thankful for,
Yes.
And many people say, well, they went to broadcasting school and all that. Cynthia, I didn't go, and Cynthia didn't go. Neither one of us went. I give made room for us. And we got a lot to be so thankful for in terms of how God has really blessed us, and how God is still going to bless us, even in the midst of all the stuff that's going on and all the stuff that's being said that's going to take place based on who is elected and who's going to be in the cabinet and all those things. That we can't have a spirit of fear. We just got to trust God, because God's going to take care of us regardless as to who's in the White House or who's in any house, because God is in control. My niece preached a message. She preached a message called, it was Control, Alt, Delete. Control, Alt, Delete. Okay. Who's in control? God is in control. And then we think we're in control, but God is in control. Then what does God do? We got a plan, but God alters our plan. Our plan. And then if you ain't careful, you're not careful, and you won't follow God's will, you will be what? Deleted. Because there will come a time that you will be deleted, okay? So it's where you're going to spend eternity. Where you're going to spend eternity. Are you going to spend eternity with him, or are you going to spend eternity with them? Now, I want to be with him. I don't want to be with them. All right? All right, Cynthia,
I was trying to find a verse in the Bible that related to what you were talking about, but I can't seem to find it.
Well, can you just kind of say it, what it is that you believe it's saying, and then maybe I can help you with it?
Well, it said, well, man, it was so, it was right after we had the election, and people were kind of distraught and everything. And at Bible study, the pastor said, I'm going to show you something that will, help you understand. And so right there in the passage, it says that some things have to happen. God allows things to happen because it's part of his plan. And so when we read that, it gave you some inner peace about the election, to know that God's still in control. He allowed that to happen, but he's got a plan for that.
Well, if you really want to get to the Bible, and I think your pastor was talking about Saul and Samuel. And Samuel was, the people wanted a king. The people wanted a king. Yeah. And God allowed them to have a king. God allowed them to have a king. He allowed them to have. That's it. Yeah.
And it was the same way, like like with Jesus and Barabbas. They chose Barabbas. That's it. What is that? 2 Samuel.
It's in Kings. It's in the Book of Kings.
Kings.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, you really have studied the Bible, haven't you?
Well, I'm gonna put it like this right here. If I haven't studied the Bible, then well, let me see. I may have been misquoted now. Let me Google. Can you help me Google? What was Google? I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna be a Googler right now. Let's see. We're gonna Google this thing. Let's Google this thing. Let's Google it. You should have Googled it over there, Cynthia. All
I
right.
can't find it.
All right. Where's the scripture where Samuel, the people elected Saul as king? All right, that's what you want to know. In First Samuel, it's in First Samuel. It's here in Samuel. It's in First Samuel. Right. Thank God for Google. It's in First Samuel. Thank God for Google. Google it. And then you got AI. You got AI. You got Google. I tell you. You know, I'm gonna tell you something. You can tell Cynthia and I got good cameras. You can tell we just real with it. We just don't play with it. We just ourselves with it. Right, Cynthia?
Right.
What you doing? What you doing over there? What you doing?
Okay, you said First Samuel what?
Yeah. Oh, Cynthia. Good God, Cynthia. You would say that out there. It's First Samuel, the 8th chapter, verses 10 through 22.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're looking for it. She's looking for it, ladies and gentlemen. She's looking for it. She's looking for it.
Yeah. And so when, back to that scripture, after we had that in Bible study, it gave you inner peace about what happened with the election. And so that was, I didn't understand it, but I did after he explained it.
Well, and God is totally in control, and God only allows things to happen to show us that we're turning away from Him to bring us back to Him. We're turning away from Him to bring Him. He allows us to go through these kinds of things. That when people turn their face away from God and start worshiping out of God, this is what happens. And God is, and people not going to church. They're not getting into the Word of God. These things are happening. They're worldly. They're doing worldly things, and they're operating under worldly, humanistic rules and regulations as opposed to godly rules and regulations. This is not the first time it's happened, and it won't be. Solomon said ain't nothing new up under the sun. So it is not. So we need to clearly understand that God is still yet what? In control. He's still yet in control. He's in control. But Cynthia, this has been very, very good program tonight, just being able to share with you, and you didn't go to sleep on me, and you're so I appreciate you not going to sleep. But I'll tell Shanan that he can take off next week because it'll just be me and you. I'll let him know next week. He can tell next week. He can see about the 2-year-old next week too. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and do share. And that's First Samuel 8. And read that whole chapter. If you still dealing with the issue of what happened, to get a better understanding that God allows things to happen, but God is still yet in control. Okay? Now, until next week, you stay tuned to Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Miss C and Shanan E. Jones. Don't forget to like us. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to make comments, and don't forget to share. If you want to be on the program, you have news or information you want to share, go to Straight Talk News at 1362@gmail.com. And as we always say, this ain't nothing but straight talk. But Miss C gonna say, what you gonna say, Miss C? Miss C, what you gonna say?
What am I gonna say? Tell me.
And don't forget about Miss C. All right, everybody. Bye. Until next week. God bless you, and we thank you and for viewing and checking us out and sharing with your family and your friends. Please do. We love you, and God loves you best.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922@comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.